Hola a todos, ¿cómo están el día de hoy? Yo soy Elisha y estoy estudiante o estudio español, aprendiendo español para 2 o 3 meses más o menos. And it's been great. It's been great. It's been challenging. Es muy divertido, es muy emocionado y claro, challenging, of course, challenging for me only because of the hours make it challenging. The hours definitely make it challenging. As you guys know, estoy aprendiendo español para 6 horas cada día, todos los días, every day, all day, 6 hours. It seems like it's all day. It really does. And I've been doing that pretty consistently. Yes, give or take. There's some days where I might hit 4.5 hours. That's really been recently this month, honestly. Sometimes I might hit 5 hours. But what I'll do is, like, in the beginning of the month, I went to El Paso. It's, for those who don't know, in Texas, it's near the border in Mexico. It's right next to Juarez. And yeah, I mean, I was on vacation for like 4 days, so I didn't really want to study as much. I still was getting like 4 or 5 hours in a day. I just wasn't going to get that extra hour or try to stay up for that extra hour just to, squeeze it in. But to compensate, the days where I wasn't on vacation, I was hitting 7, 8, 9 hour days. And, obviously that evens out eventually to where now I'm at about 6.5 hours a day, all in all, average wise. And that is how I've been kind of keeping up with it, So, although the title might be misleading, I'm not hitting 6 hours a day every single day. But I would say most of the days I am. And the days where I'm not, I compensate by going above and beyond and hitting 6, 7, 8. My weekends is all Spanish. Off days is all Spanish. So I fit it in. And there's also some time I'm not putting in to the end of the month. For instance, recently, I think I said in my last video that I'm studying Español to teach in Español para mi iglesia, my church, my community, to be a pastor in Spanish. I already am in English, but in Spanish. So that's really, so what I do is I read in Spanish the La Reina Valera. It has the translations on both sides, but I do focus mainly on the Spanish. At this point, I would say I'm at 400 hours, by the way. I guess that's important to kind of mention. I am at 400 hours. And with that, I've noticed a couple things, but before I get into that, with the reading, I have started reading. I have the audiobook, so it helps me with certain pronunciations that I might not know. Given, I grew up in a relatively Spanish-speaking city, so a lot of the pronunciations I've already heard, I can already kind of produce myself naturally. So although I was starting from fairly scratch or minimal Espanol, I've heard enough of the accent for a long time, on top of the fact that my mother spoke Spanish. So, it's not too big of a stretch for me to kind of pick up on it. I know some people at 400 hours might not be there yet, accent-wise, and I'm not saying I have a near native accent at all. I know that, but as far as producing some sounds, I can produce some sounds or mimic some sounds now. With that being said, so the reading, I don't need to translate every single thing, so I know enough comprehensively to be able to flow. And I'm only in Genesis, so who knows how it goes. But as far as right now, I know enough, and if it's a word or two, I'll glance at it real quick just to kind of see what it might be. And what I realize is you keep seeing the word over and over again, especially in the earlier chapters. You start learning it anyway, so it's like I can choose the comprehensible method, the CI method, or just peek at it real quick and move on. I'll probably go a little more about La Reina Valera another time. It's been very interesting. But as far as how my journey's been, so the last time I spoke, I think I was at 225 hours. I was going to make a video at 300. I think I said I was going to. And I realized I didn't feel any different at 300. You know, I was only 75 hours more. And the same challenges, the same doubts, the same, you know, I felt like I was at the same understanding level at 300 as I was at 225. And that was discouraging for me for a while. I felt like I hit a slump. And I also don't think I shook it until around 340 to 350. So around the last 50 to 60 hours, because I'm at 400 now, I felt a breakthrough, a noticeable breakthrough. Where I could tell, okay, you know a lot more than what you did a month ago, you know, and that was relieving for me because, you know, yeah, for those who are doing this and for those who may see it, or for those who I put on Dreaming Spanish in a couple of years or a couple of months and they watch my old videos where I was at when I was, you know, just learning it, you're going to realize that you're not going to trust this process very much because it doesn't seem like anything's happening. And it doesn't seem like it until it starts happening. Like, for instance, in the beginning when I was speaking, you know, español poquito, you know, más o menos, pero it was a little bit. That's those type of phrases, and it's just start producing in your head. It's natural. You don't have to really think about it too much. You know, I've noticed some phrases I'd prefer to say in español, and even some words when I'm trying to explain in English, I'd rather explain in español. I think that's just simply because I'm encountering at such a higher level. So yeah, you know, there's certain things I'm realizing in that instance. There's certain, you know, so that's motivating. That's motivating. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I don't want to make this too long of a video. Also, I do want to post more. I realize for me, it doesn't matter how many people have these type of videos out there. The so-and-so learn Spanish. I like watching all of them. Because I ain't gonna lie to you, I be feeling like people are capping out here. I be feeling like they're lying, like they're not really learning Spanish, and I'm wasting my time. So I like to go through as many, you know, personal accounts as possible for my just self-motivation. Because again, I'm logging in 6 hours a day, and I guess like people say you go through slumps, or some days or some weeks it feels like, you know, you're not learning anything or you don't know anything. And other days you have a lot of understanding. But for me, I guess because I'm consuming at such a high level, when I hit those hours of not knowing anything or not feeling like I'm grasping anything, instead of it being like a week's time, I feel like a whole day goes by. I didn't get anything out of that, anything out of the podcast or anything out of the TV shows. Because whether you're doing 1 hour a day for 6 days or 6 hours in one day, that 6 hour period where you're not gonna learn anything, you're still gonna feel like you didn't learn anything. And then for me, it's like, did I just burn a day for no reason? Like, am I putting these hours in and not getting anything out of it? Like, is that gonna hurt me in the end? How is this gonna affect me? That's always the question I have. Like, for the days, because I do think the higher amounts of content that you're consuming, I think I'm missing more than if I was fresh every day and only did 1 hour a day, where I have all the attention span and all the focus in the world to really digest everything that I'm hearing. And that troubles me sometimes as far as learning, and if that's gonna backfire. But then I think about it, and I'm like, man, people who learn language, it doesn't really matter if they're fully paying attention to it every 5 seconds. They're gonna grasp it regardless. And I have to remember, I was doing a lot of research on even the brain and how it learns language. And for me, it's like, I want my active language to be at a high level. I want my ability to constantly know that I'm improving, to show forth my results, versus allowing my brain to do what it does and trusting that it is functioning and it is working and it is learning. And how do I know that's actually happening? Well, por ejemplo, so today specifically, I decided to watch. So let me recap before I go there. At 2:25, At 150, even before 150, I was already kind of peaking at intermediate videos. And for me, in the beginning, I could only really watch it with the subtitles. I had to read subtitles for me to understand what was going on. Even the shows I would watch, and I'll get to the shows in a little bit. And then I realized that now that I'm going back to those same videos, intermediate and such, I don't need subtitles anymore, which is great. But that also has been happening for the TV shows I've been watching. So for the last 100 hours or so, and or no, it's been almost 200 hours now. I've been mixing in a lot of different TV shows. Again, like I said before, I get tired of ESS or dreaming Spanish sometimes. I can't do it. Not all day, not for 6 hours. There's no way. I get you an hour or so, if that. Maybe 30 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes. Unless it's really interesting, DS is not really getting my attention. I probably, out of the 400 hours I got, only 115 are coming from DS. And that's just, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I'm watching novelas, La Fea Bella. I've been watching that. I've only got maybe about 14 episodes. I've been watching the hell out of Naruto. I'm on capítulo, what is it? 132, I think? Yeah, 132. For those that watch anime, the part where they're fighting, Sasuke and Naruto are fighting at the Great Valley. That's what I'm watching in Spanish. And for stuff like that, I would say, to give a percentage point, when I was first watching Naruto, from episode 1 on, I did around 200 hours. I was understanding about maybe 20%. And that's really only because I knew the context of the actual show. I could assume what was going on based off how many times I've actually watched it myself. But realmente, only probably 5-10% understanding and being able to comprehend, aside from my preconceived notions. Now, there's times when I get lost, conversationally wise. There's times I'm like, I don't know what the hell I said. But for the most part, I'm at 40%. Without context, I'm at 40%. And I think that's a pretty strong point. For La Fea, it was like 5-10% max. It was bad. That's native content, and I know I'm like 1,000 hours off. Not even, probably 800 hours off from native content, but I don't like to wait. And I have a theory on that. So yeah, at first like 5-10% I understood, and after that, today I finished my one of the episodes I had. It was 14, and I'm at like a solid 20. 25. That's without subtitles, by the way. I was at 5-10% with subtitles. Without subtitles, I'm at 20%. Sometimes, like 20% looks like you're listening and you have the concept of what's going on, but you're out of, let's say, 5 sentences, you only heard one sentence, or you only completely registered one sentence. Everything else was guesstimated, or you picked up words here and there, and you can kind of piece it together for the rest. But as far as understanding the entire sentence with no problems, and you can translate that immediately, yeah, that's 20% time, which is a fair analysis. So yeah, my theory on that is why I'm doing it early, not waiting until the DSS method. I look at it like no native speaker has to be babied, so to speak, for lack of better words, to get to the point where they can understand normal pace. Like, yes, there's children's shows for children, but they're listening to their parents speak at full speed from the get-go. So if I'm taking this DS method literal and how they got their analysis, which is based off of how children learn Spanish, I should be learning it in the same sense. Like, hey, I'm not going to keep listening to the slower method. And so that's my son in the back. I'm not going to keep listening to the slower Spanish. Vamos, ven aquí. And not get anything out of it. So I listen to it. I listen to the fast stuff here and there. And then when I get tired of that, when I get bored, when I can't keep my attention up, then I go back to the smaller, the slower intermediate. Or I'll watch Alcestina. And she, just so you know, her intermediate and her advanced videos are damn near the same. Pace-wise, it's the same. So, I watch her if I want to break mentally. Because she has a slower pace than like a Andrea or Michelle. in their advanced or intermediate versions. I think so. But yeah, that's the quick update. Like I said, I'm at 400 hours right now. The goal in the next 200 hours. Oh, by the way, I'm no longer using LinkQ. Hey, not that it was a bad thing. It's just I realized I don't have time to sit down and read as much as the money is requiring me to pay. Like, I'm not gonna pay $15 for 1 month, and I was only able to read of that month, of the beginning of this month, like 5 days, I think. It's like, I'm not doing this. There's no way. I don't have the time for it. Now, I give my mind at 30 minutes a day, but I'll do that for free and just read the Bible, and that's my goal, and get more out of it spiritually than me paying all this money. So I got rid of it. Not a bad app. I think it's beneficial if you have the time. And if you're, going for more of a casual learning scenario, I'm not. I'm going hardcore. I'm listening to podcasts, averaging 3 to 4 hours a day. That's really most of my inputs coming in anyway, just so y'all know. Mostly podcasts.